Hi my friends, I'm author and publisher Mark David Welsh and welcome to my September reading roundup. Morning guys, and welcome to a wet and gloomy Sheffield on a Wednesday morning, Wednesday the 1st of October. And now, I don't know much about booktubing. I don't know much about being a booktuber really, but there are lots of habits and conventions that booktubers adhere to. And one of them is doing a monthly reading roundup. So I thought, well, that seems a sensible one to me. A lot of the others I quite frankly don't understand too well, but I'll maybe get round to them in the future, but for now I'm going to do my reading roundup for September. Excuse me. It's still early. September was an unusual month for me in the fact that I got through 8 books. Now, I don't know if I'm a fast reader or a slow reader particularly. I've never really given it a lot of thought. I don't know if that's a lot or if it's not really. Normally I only get through about 5 or 6 maybe, but this month I actually went visiting and that involved a couple of pretty long train journeys there and back again, if you like. Yeah, I had more of an opportunity to read. So I managed to get through 8, and let's get to them. Now, to begin with, I had my trusty Kobo with me when I was on the train. So basically, I was nailed into Dr. Thorndyke by R. Austin Freeman, if I can get his name out. Now, this was a character I came across actually in August. I haven't posted any videos about this yet, but I'm doing actually a thread of which I've called Reading the Detectives, where I'm looking at basically, wait for it, what could loosely be described as the rivals of Sherlock Holmes. Now, this is a DVD of the TV show from 1971 to 73, I think, where they basically, just as it sounds, it was an anthology of programs where they basically featured a different story each week involving a detective who could be described as a rival to Sherlock Holmes. They were basically written in the Victorian or Edwardian period, so basically late 1890s, early 1900s. And Dr. Thorndyke was one of those. And so in August, if we want to go back a month, I tried one of the books. The first one, obviously. Hang on, let's just put those out of the way. Oh, God, it's such a mess in here, honestly. You wouldn't believe what I'm surrounded by. There's a ladder over there. I've got stuff on a ladder. Anyway, anyway, back in August, I tried the first Dr. Thorndyke novel, The Red Thumb Mark. And I wasn't all that impressed with it, to be honest. I like the characters, Dr. Thorndyke and his Watson, Dr. Jervis. I liked them a lot, but the story didn't do a lot for me. It felt very much padded out to novel length from something shorter, and I wasn't too impressed. But by then I'd already bought this R. Austin Freeman mega pack for my Kobo. So I thought, well, let's try the next book in the series. And as I was travelling on the train, why not? And that was John Thorndyke's Cases. And that's a collection of 7 short stories. And I felt the format of these worked much, much better. Now, to explain who Dr. Thorndyke is very briefly, he was a expert in what they call medical jurisprudence back in the old days. What that actually means to a modern ear is a forensic expert. As the stories start, he's more of the guy who's brought in as an expert witness on court cases to give the scientific angle, the scientific evidence, but very quickly, because he's so good at this and so incredibly brilliant, he begins assisting the police directly in their cases. And that's what's happening in John Thorndyke's Cases, these short stories in the second volume. And I say they work much better than the original novel, I felt. And I enjoyed them. They're pretty good. If that's your sort of thing, I'd recommend them. And certainly because the very next volume in the series, which was the next thing that I read, was another novel called The Eye of Osiris, the second novel in the series. And my God, it was so much better than the Red Thumb Mark. Really, very much better. There's a good mystery to it. There's a doubt about the outcome, which there never was in the Red Thumb Mark. It was pretty obvious what was going on after about 20 pages in that one. But yeah, the Eye of Osiris is really worth a read, and I'm going to do a review of these, so I won't go into it in too much depth, but yeah, very enjoyable. The next one, the fourth in the series and the third book I read in September, similarly on these train journeys, was The Mystery of New Inn 31, which was basically an expansion of the shorter, I think it was more of a novella, that was published first, which was the first thing Freeman wrote about Thorndyke. And this one is not as good as the Eye of Osiris. It's definitely a step down from that. But I still thought it was good. It was still much better than the Red Thumb Mark. Yeah, I thought it was enjoyable. And I certainly do like the characters of Thorndyke and Jervis. And I won't explain particularly why, but Jervis stops narrating the tales pretty quickly and we get different narrators. At least that's how it would appear it's going to go. We'll see more about that later. But yeah, I'd recommend these. If you're into kind of Victorian detective stuff, Edwardian detective stuff, I would say, yeah, this is worth checking out to see what you think. But probably, well, if you do want to read them in order, don't take the Red Thumb Mark as the as the sort of like the average for the series. It gets a lot better very quickly. After that, I read one more book on my Kobo on my travels, and that was a very different beast. That was called The Benson Murder Case by an American author called S.S. Van Dyne, which is from slightly later, I think, was it the 20s or the 30s? I can't remember. But yeah, this is different. Philo Vance is the main character. He's the detective. He's an art fancier, basically, and a kind of man of independent means. And he just basically kind of expresses a wish to an old friend of his who happens to be a top detective that he would be interested in sitting in, if you like, on a murder case. And so the Benson murder case, being the first in the series of 12, is the one where that happens. And I enjoyed this a lot less than the Thorndyke stuff, I have to say. I've read some negative stuff about Van Dyne's work already, but I thought, well, let's just judge for myself. And of course, it's cheap on Kobo, so why the hell not? And this is not an advert for Kobo, by the way. I'm not sponsored, but they are very cheap on there, some of these things. So I tried that, but I've got to say, okay, I'm probably going to slog through a couple more of them, see if they improve in the way that the Thorndyke ones did. But really, I found Philo Vance an extremely annoying character, to be honest with you. Yeah, very smug, very conceited, very annoying. Anyway, that's certainly enough of him, at least for now. I mean, I might come back to him if I am going to read a couple more and see what I think. So I might review them as part of my reading the detectives thread at some point. But I can't say I'm particularly keen on getting around to reading more of them very quickly. Not after the Benson murder case, anyway. And the frustrating thing about it was the actual murder itself and the mystery isn't too bad. But yeah, the Vance character is extremely annoying. Okay. So, excuse me, I need coffee this morning, I really do. Oh yeah, that hits the spot. So, after that, I took a different tack and I went to horror next. And specifically, I went to the second Hammer film omnibus, which is by a guy called John Burke, who novelised a lot of the movies for Hammer back in the day. This one includes The Reptile. The movie is one of my personal favourites of Hammer. And the same, I would say, for Rasputin the Mad Monk, which is in here as well. The other two are Plague of the Zombies, which I do think's got some good atmosphere as a movie. And the one I like least of the films is actually Dracula, Prince of Darkness with Christopher Lee, which is kind of strange in a way, because I would expect, being the main man, Chris, involved, yeah, that does give a project some extra oomph, doesn't it? But I've never been a big fan of the film, and I read the novelisation. That's the one I've read out of the four. I haven't read the other three. I've just read Dracula, Prince of Darkness. And to me, it did pretty much encompass the faults of the movie, I think, to some extent. And that's not to say I don't enjoy the movie or it's bad. That wouldn't be true. But yeah, it lacks a bit as a novel, I think. But Burke is a decent enough writer. There's no problem there. And I'm looking forward to getting around to the other three in here at some point. But I am going to do a review of this one in more depth, because I'm probably going to pair it with the novelisation of Countess Dracula, which was actually written by a different author. So I'll probably be doing that. So I won't talk about that one too much. But it's okay. If you get round to reading it at some point, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not that great. Okay, after that, we move on to something that definitely wasn't that great. Yeah, oh my God, yes. Okay, let's get rid of that. This is The Moon Pool by A.A. Merritt, which is Lost World literature. And if you're at all familiar with anything I've said on this channel so far, and there are a few people out there who might be, not many, but a few, I love Lost World literature. The first 80 pages of this I thought were brilliant. I was loving it. It's a brilliant setup. It's set in a wonderfully different location, and I thought, I'm in for a real treat here. Merritt's prose is a little wordy at times, I thought, but not too bad. I could deal with it, and I was blown away, and I thought the first 80 pages I was thinking, I've discovered a new author. And then the main characters get to the lost world that's involved, and oh dear. Oh God, I ended up hating this. I really did. It was a slog. His prose gets completely over the top. It's endlessly wordy. The story's not very interesting. The world is completely unbelievable. The world building isn't very good. I just was so let down, so disappointed in this in the end. I'd heard about it before as being kind of like one of the key Lost World literature books, but I didn't get on with it at all. Couldn't get on with it. And I would have DNF'd it, but I'm going to probably review it. So more on that one later. But, that's just my opinion. I have to stress that about all the things I say on here. The last two books I read on this particular month were both from Starkhouse Press. Now, I want to make a point that I'll probably have to make in the video where I review them as well. I'm not sponsored by Starkhouse Press. I don't have any connection with them apart from buying the books. But they are doing something which I personally love. Now, I'm a huge film noir fan and have been ever since I saw The Maltese Falcon when I was about 12 or something. I love it. I absolutely love it. I've watched so many film noirs. Let's take a moment here. Hang on. Yeah, here we go. Back here, and this is totally unrehearsed. I hadn't thought about this, but this is the Film Noir Guide by Michael F. Keeney. Now, I don't totally agree with his definition of film noir. There's a lot of things in here which I wouldn't include, but there are basically hundreds of films listed in here, and guess what? I've seen them all, because I sort them all out, even the ones that I don't think are film noir. In fact, they're definitely not, to be honest. But no, I've watched them all. So my only point there is basically to say I love film noir. So that leads into what I'm going to talk about. If I can just put this back. There we go, in there. Because this leads to the fact that there have been many film noirs made over the years which I loved, which had original novels. Most of them were based on novels, or at least a lot of them were. But I've never been able to read those novels because a lot of them weren't hugely successful. The films that they were that were based on them weren't hugely successful either. So those books have been out of print for years, and in some cases were only printed once anyway. And I know I've been looking for these for a long time, but the point being that the only copies you could find were probably first editions or maybe second or third editions from back in the day. And they cost a fortune. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of pounds. There was one I was even looking for, which was I only ever found one copy of online, and it was over £1,000. These just totally, no way I could afford any of those. So I basically had resigned myself to not ever being able to read any of them until Starkhouse Press came along, because they publish and republish lots of old pulp kind of fiction, but also they have a film noir thread, and they've been publishing, I think they've published about 12 by now, some of which I have and all of which I will eventually get, and it was 2 of those that I actually read last month, and I wanted to talk about those, and I will do a video about them. The first one is by a guy called Murray Forbes. It's called Hollow Triumph. It was made into a movie with Casablanca's Paul Hunreid and Joan Bennett, the Queen of Noir. It's also known as The Scar in some territories, I think, and it was made in 1948. The movie never impressed me all that much, to be honest. I don't remember a lot about it now. I have got a copy, so I can rewatch it before I do my review of the book. But I thought I'd try a novel, and yeah, it's a tale of a small-time criminal who finds he has an uncanny resemblance, more than a resemblance in fact, to a world-famous psychiatrist. And so basically he thinks it might be a good idea to kill off the psychiatrist and take his place. And that's what the book's about. And it's a very strange, unusual, but quite absorbing read. It's more of a character study about this small-time criminal and his aspirations more than it's a thriller. But I was engrossed. I really thought this was great. And the only shame about it, I thought, was perhaps, well, there were 2 things. Perhaps the ending wasn't all that great. It certainly takes an unusual turn. And the other thing being that Murray Forbes never wrote anything else. This is it. This is his one book. He was a radio actor, and a very successful one for many years. But he never wrote another book. And I do think that's a shame, because I really enjoyed that one. And I would recommend it if you like your noir a little different. Far more standard noir was the other one that I'm talking about, which is William L. Stuart's Night Cry, which was filmed as Where the Sidewalk Ends with Dana Andrews and Gene Tierney. And this is, as I say, a far more conventional noir, but I thought this was terrific. This is really bare bones, kind of bleak, kind of nasty a little bit. I thought this was great. This is about a cop who basically, he's on a case. He goes to interview a witness who he thinks is possibly a murderer. Things get out of hand, and he kills him. The cop kills the suspect, and then instead of coming clean about it to everyone and kind of like saying this was an accident, because it was, he didn't intend to do it, but he decides instead he's going to cover it up and he's going to dispose of the body, and it's all what happens as a result of that. And yeah, this is a terrific read. I zoomed through this basically in 2 sittings, and that's not a criticism, that's a compliment. I thought this was absolutely great. And the only downside, again, is the fact that William L. Stuart, although he wrote many scripts for hit television shows, only ever wrote one other novel, which again is one you can't get, or you can, but I think it's about 40 quid a time for a first edition. That's called The Dead Don't Lie, which I think is also known as Dead Around, which is more of a spy thriller, I gather. Hopefully Starkhouse Press, if you're watching this, guys, print that, because I'd buy it, definitely, on the evidence of this. But yeah, so that is a disappointment that there is nothing else by him to read, because I would love to read more, because I thought this was great. So that was my reading experience for September. It was a very positive one, I've got to say. Apart from the moon pool, it was very positive indeed. I enjoyed it immensely. And I would recommend some of these, and some of them I'll be reviewing in depth, some of them I won't. We'll just see how it goes. And yeah, that's about it for this particular video. I hope you stay with it all the way. You've got to like, what is it? Oh God, I'm hopeless at this bit. You've got... Please like, subscribe, and click the notification bell. That's it. Yes. God, I should have that written up somewhere so I could just read it like off a cue card or something. Okay. Well, that's it for this video anyway. Thanks for sticking with me. Probably going to be another one this week where I go through my TBR for October, which will again be quite amusing, at least to me, if not to you. So that's it for today. Please keep digging through those old second-hand bookshops, because there are some treasures out there to uncover. And I'll see you later.